through with Brad Meltzer what happened that day. Friday is the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination. And he's an amazing figure. I mean, his presidency only lasts 34 months. So how does a president who didn't lead the civil rights charge, he didn't have a great foreign policy record, it was Bay of Pigs, he was a notorious womanizer, he doesn't have a long list of political accomplishments. I mean, the things that he did in his Oval Office, this, by the way, is the set from Oliver Stone's JFK. How does he end up having 900 schools in America named after him? How does he become one of America's most revered leaders ever? Well, there's three answers. One, because he was shot. I don't buy that. Two, because he is a big, huge progressive leader, and progressives own history, and so they have made him into something. I kind of buy that one a little bit, but the real answer is John F. Kennedy was able to do what great leaders always do. He challenged people, he inspired, he held the bar high, he stirred people into action. You can recite a list of promises and solutions and handouts from government, but that's LBJ. That's not JFK. JFK did the opposite. He actually let the fate of the nation, when he appeared on a television just like this one, he said, where is the fate of the nation? Where does it really rest? Watch.
In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course.
In your hands, not his. Right now, your whole world is affected by what happens in this office. He's saying it doesn't. It happens in your office with your hands. Everyone knows the famous, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. But there was another ask not after that. The line after it, do you remember what he said?
My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man.
Here he's even saying that. He truly believed in people and their freedom and their individual freedom and the individual choice that each one made. That's why he's loved and remembered. He didn't condescend and dictate what to eat and how many French fries you can have and what your kids exactly have to do at school. It was in your hands. You live your life. He just looked in the camera and said, what are you waiting for? Do it. Do it. Now that angle from JFK has been airbrushed from the history books. He is portrayed as a progressive liberal icon. Well, of course he is. Who controls the history? In the last 100 years, who's been writing it? And who's let him? Who's let the progressives write the history? We have. But if you actually look at JFK in his own words, if he were alive today and spoke those words, he would not be identified with the progressive left. In fact, I don't think the progressive left, I don't even think the Republicans would let him in. History has been molested over the last 110 years. And it's been intentionally made boring by teachers and professors and historians of all walks of life. And the result is a vacuum, a history vacuum that was created. And the progressives were there to fill it. They created it. They wanted to fill it. It was void of anything other than self-fulfilling propaganda and statues now to honor people like Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson is a statue. He's now known as the 5th greatest president in American history. He was a nightmare. He was the biggest racist I think we've ever had in office. Margaret Sanger, today honored really at the White House through Gloria Steinem. This is how they remember her at the National Portrait Gallery at the Smithsonian. As a nurse, she was a killer that wanted to wipe out all black people. Some are even now teaching that Abraham Lincoln, look at this, this building dedicated to public service honoring the memory of Abraham Lincoln, Democrat. How do they think they can get away with this? Well, because we've never paid attention before. We were asleep. People get their history from movies rather than, facts. Oliver Stone did the country a grave disservice when he made this set. And I think it's so great that Oliver Stone uses this set to pervert history, and we now use it to put it right. But this is the actual set that was in the movie JFK, and it's considered to be fact by most people, but it's not. Stone himself called the movie a counter-myth. Why would you do that to a people's history? Progressives have had carte blanche in changing our history and all of our traditions. It's what the president's wife said. Barack knows we're going to have to change our history and our traditions, and we've been doing that. However, what they didn't know is they were going to wake a sleeping giant. It wasn't too long ago that I signed my first book deal. It was been about 10 years now, and I wrote The Real America. And nobody at Simon & Schuster, and really no book organization, wanted to take a book deal because they said nobody reads. Conservatives, this is a quote, conservatives don't read. Really? Well, that was their deal, and they said that Rush Limbaugh was just a fluke. I want to show you something I noticed today, because you've proved them wrong, spectacularly wrong, but it goes deeper than that. I mean, this is like, oh, don't buy Microsoft or Google. That's how wrong they are. If you look at the top 10 bestsellers, now this is everything from cookbooks and everything, five of the top 10 bestsellers are written by conservatives right now. Brian Kilmeade, George Washington's Secret Six, Bill O'Reilly's Killing Jesus, My Miracles and Massacres, Charles Krauthammer, and Rush Limbaugh's Brave Pilgrims. This is a progressive worst nightmare, right here. And this is changing the book world. And more importantly, this is standing against the waves that have been crashing in and telling you a whole bunch of lies. People are learning truth. 4 out of these 5 books are history books, exposing the BS history that we've been taught all our lives. What does that tell you? That tells you there is a deep hunger for Americans to reconnect with history, because we know we have been lied to. We didn't know that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So now we have to re-examine everything. Tonight I want to re-examine from both sides of the angle what happened when JFK left this office and went down to Dallas. This office is really not known for anything during JFK except for that picture of John crawling out from underneath the desk in that door. So, what happened 50 years ago this week?
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Pretty shocking. I can't imagine what that was like. At the time of his assassination, a dark cloud was beginning to form in America, a storm that would eventually produce extreme leftist radicals who embraced violence. And soon America witnessed the days of rage in Altamont and Woodstock. MLK was murdered. Robert Kennedy was assassinated. I fear that many, not all, but many of the same dark clouds are brewing today, and some of them with exactly the same people. We have the union thuggery, the violence of beating people down that oppose them. We have Occupy Wall Street, which is exactly the same kind of degradation of our society. You now have a large movement describing Charles Manson in a positive way. Quote, first they killed those pigs, then they ate dinner in the same room with them, they even shoved a fork into the victim's stomach. Wild. That is a quote from Bernadine Dorn. Her husband, Bill Ayers. They are instrumental in what your kids are learning in school today. Because we have so detached from things that are real, many of our youth seem completely devoid of any kind of humanity. We have told you on this program about the new game Knockout, where kids target an unsuspected stranger and try to knock him out with a punch, and then they walk away laughing. This is the 1960s.